again, and welcome to Get Celebritized with Araya McGarry, and that's me. I'm so glad you guys are here with me today, wherever you are listening or watching around the world. You know, if you've listened before, that this show is about helping entrepreneurs learn how to earn more so you can live more, so you can give back more. If you've known me for a minute or you've known me forever, you know that my passion is to give back to as many charities as I can during my lifetime. And I love helping entrepreneurs learn how to make more money for themselves, for their families, for their goals and their future, but also so they can give back to their favorite causes and their favorite charities as well, to live their own legacy. And tonight is no different. I have a very special guest to show you how to do that in an amazing way. I have Adam Schaeuble with me tonight. And Adam, you're going to love him because he's all about podcasting. So listen up and get your notebook because here we go. My special guest, Adam Schaeuble, is a full-time podcaster, which is many people's dream to become one. He has a podcasting business school and he's a podcasting business coach. He's the host of the top-ranked podcast titled Podcasting Business School and Podcast Launch Tips. Adam's goal is to teach his students how they can love their show as a hobby and build it like a business. I'm so excited to tap into his knowledge and his brain. Adam helps podcasters launch, grow, and my favorite, monetize their podcast so that they can have a lucrative side hustle, connect with ideal customers and clients, get sponsorships, and create an impactful brand via podcasting. So without any further ado, let me bring up the one and only Adam Schaeuble. Welcome.
Araya McGarry, thank you so much for having me. I am ready to get celebritized. I'm a fan of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I'm excited to make this happen. I've been excited to be on your show here for a little bit. We've been talking about it. Now it's actually happening. And I'm fired up and ready, girl. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, Adam, I'm in love with your voice. You have the voice for radio for sure, but you have the face for TV as well. So this is perfect.
Nice little, you came in strong at the end there. That's good. That's good.
You really do. So I'm so glad this is a video and a podcast. Some people like to watch, some people like to listen, so I give them both. And Adam, you and I have been talking for a couple of weeks now, maybe even a couple of months. I love what you do because podcasting has become such a rage right now, and so many people want to utilize it for whether it's edutainment, entertainment, or to lead people to their programs and products and services. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what Podcasting Business School is and who it's for, and maybe who it's not for.
Yeah, so Podcasting Business School is a brand that was kind of birthed out of my love for podcasting. I didn't actually start in the business space. I'm a now recovering gym owner, as I describe myself. I owned a gym. I owned a fitness boot camp center for about 10 years, and I did really well with it. And I was doing so well that all my clients were like, you got to franchise this. You need to go next level with your impact. And I was like, I really don't want to franchise and be in charge of a whole bunch of different people and things. But I came across the medium of podcasting. I was like, I think I could grow my impact with that. I think I could reach more people everywhere with this thing called podcasting. So I started doing that, and
How long ago?
That was back in 2015. I launched the $1 Million Mission podcast, and we did really well with that. And I started to develop an online audience. I'd never done any online brand building at all. It was only brick and mortar, local people, help them get healthy. That was all I was doing. So it's just kind of, it was tough. Like that first year I talk about all the time, I probably wanted to quit every week, and I didn't, but I got things figured out eventually. After 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, I really started to hit my stride. And that's when other people in the space started going, hey, you seem to be doing this correctly and enjoying it and monetizing it. Can you help me? I was like, I think there's something here. So that's where Podcasting Business School was kind of born, out of me starting to mentor and consult with people in the health space that wanted to launch shows or monetize their show. I just fell in love with that. And I fell in love with the space of podcasting just because it's so synergistic and it's so different. Being a gym owner, cutthroat, competitive,
Wow.
ego driven. People are stealing each other's clients and like
Really?
trying to put each other out of business and all this stuff.
Oh, that's not nice.
Where no, and in podcasting, it's like everybody levels everyone else up. It's all about collaboration. There is no competition. Like it's not like, oh my gosh, Araya doesn't want me to be on her show because I might steal her listeners. Like, what does that even mean? Like they listen to shows, you know?
Exactly. It's room at the
So,
top for everybody. I
yeah,
love it. And
yeah,
then Adam, you said something that's really important for the listeners or viewers to really resonate with is you became successful at something. And then people are saying, hey, can you teach me how to do that? And that's how coaches are born. And that's how businesses are born. Because I always tell my clients, take advice from people who are where you want to be in that area. Like there is no Yoda that has done everything and knows everything about everything. It's if you want to know about technology, you're talking to somebody who's great at technology. If you want to know somebody who knows how to monetize a podcast, you better be talking to somebody who's monetizing their podcast and so on and so forth. So that
yeah.
was a really great point you made. You went in for one thing, but you ended up being so successful that people wanted your knowledge on, well, how did you do that? And now look at you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sold the gym, and that kind of blew some people's minds because a lot of people, when you tell them that you are or you are going to be a full-time podcaster, there's like two lanes that their brain operates in. One, oh, you must be famous, or two, you must be homeless. Like there's like two things there. There's no middle ground. So people had a hard time wrapping their mind around that. But like I love this, and I'm able to do it full time. And I've the last year in 2021, I was able to earn more income than I've ever earned in my life, but I also didn't work 145 days last year. Like I took 145 vacation days, and that's like the power of
Wow.
leveraging content and time and knowledge, like being in the knowledge space and podcasting. That's what we are. We're like knowledge media companies.
Right.
We can leverage that, and we can teach and coach one to many every time we flip open that mic and just preach and speak some knowledge and put it out there. It's powerful. So it took me a while to figure that out. And really, who is Podcasting Business School for? Back to your original question.
Right.
It's for the people that want to shorten their learning curve. It took me about 3 years to really figure everything out. I had 0 social media followers. I had 0 email list. I had 0 downloads, 0 subscribers, 0
So
everything
started at
across the
zero.
board.
Okay.
And 3 years later, I'm, approaching full time. And then eventually I went full time at year 4 and all of that. But I can teach people how to go from 0 to where I'm at now much, much faster. And they won't want to quit every week like I did that first year.
Well, I love that. So let's get a little more nitty gritty. You're saying full time, that could mean a million different things to a million different people. Somebody's full time income is different than somebody else's full time
Yep.
income. So now, right now, what is full time? And like you went from 0 to where are you now? What is a good base to know that where your downloads are? And what is a download? Is that just how many people listen to it?
Yeah. So, I mean, full time for me is I completely replaced my income from the gym. And that's something when people get into podcasting, and this as well as me, Araya, like you kind of, we were talking earlier, like if I could just do this all day, every day, like I'm in heaven. And
Yes.
that's my existence. Like that's what I
Mhm.
do.
I love it.
But I only do it 4 days a week. I take Friday through Sunday off to do the family thing. But like they
You're living
want
the
to get
dream.
there. But I like to teach my clients and people who listen to my show, like we need to do this correctly. Sometimes people like, I'm full time tomorrow, I'm just going to go for it. I'm like, no, probably not a good idea. We need
It's
to
cool.
build up your income. There are certain types of income that are easier to earn as podcasters than others. And I like to teach people to build that up, that residual income. We want that. So if we can replace your current income, or at least like 75% of that with residual recurring income that just keeps coming in, whether
Right.
that's with sponsorships, memberships, coaching, whatever, then we start talking about making that jump to full time. But really, for me, full time, you replace your income so that you're able to completely transition over. And for me, that's 4 days a week. I do, I can squeeze in a 40-hour work week in 4 days if I have to, but I'm usually in the 30 to 35-ish range. But it's leveraged. It's highly
Right.
efficient. It's highly leveraged.
It's still
And
work. It's work. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want
but
people to
it's
think that
community
they
building,
yeah,
like
exactly, and
that's
doing
what we
something you
do.
love, of course, and so can people, could they, if they worked in, I always emphasize, work is always entailed. Even if you love what you do, you're still working, but it doesn't feel like work when you're loving what you do and you're able to make the income and you're working for yourself. So could people and can people make a 6 and 7 figure income if they worked it properly
Oh
and
yeah.
really just dug into the processes that you teach them?
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing that. My clients are doing that. Like it's
That's
very, very
awesome.
doable. And you have to kind of look at your monetization portfolio. Like when people get into podcasting, they're either starting from zero like I did, or maybe they're famous, maybe they like Will Ferrell starts a podcast.
Right.
He's going to be bringing people to the table. Or maybe you have a large social media following and then you're going to start a podcast. Maybe you can bring some of those people over. But so those are kind of the three different lanes that you can get to. And obviously the bigger audience you start with, the easier it is to ramp up and monetize. But like I'm a big fan of, I think 99% of the podcasters out there, they operate in a lane that I call the people's champion, that hero's journey, that I'm in the trenches. I'm not famous. I don't have a giant audience, but you know what? You can relate to me and we're going
Mhm.
to go on this journey together.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with podcasting business school. Like I had no, formal business training. I've run successful businesses. That was my schooling. And I got out and I started experimenting. And I took everybody that listened to my show on the journey with me.
I love
So
that. I
for
love
most of those people that are listening and they're like, I want to get into podcasting, but they have that fear, that imposter syndrome where I'm not a famous comedian. I'm not going to get sponsors right away. I
that.
don't have a giant following. Okay, cool. Be relatable, be yourself. And like Araya touched on earlier, what is that life experience that you have that someone else is looking to get where you are? Teach that and then continue the journey by bringing people that are above you and have them teach your audience as well. And that's how podcasting works. And when you do a show like that and you do it right, like when I do podcasting business school, I'm not putting myself above everybody else as the teacher. I'm in the trenches.
Right.
We're walking this path together, me and my
Like you're
pod
further
pals.
ahead of them, and that's important because a teacher isn't like people used to say, "Oh, those who can't teach." And I've always hated that because you are the teacher because you've been there. You're still there, but you're further ahead than your
Yeah.
students. So you can
Yeah.
bring them along faster and help them not make the mistakes or have to figure it out on their own. And that's so important. So if you were going to give the listeners now, let's say they've got an industry. They're really good, whether they're in a health and fitness industry or whether they're into holistic essential oils or whatever, beautician, doesn't matter, whatever their industry is, but they're good at what they do. Give them a couple of tips on why they should start a podcast and what you could do for them.
Yeah. So when I talk about launching shows with clients I'm coaching or consulting with, the first conversation we have is the why behind the show. So I'm loving that you're starting here. You're very wise there, Araya.
I try.
So the why behind the show is important, and you have to think of like, all right, am I doing this? There's again like three lanes. Am I doing this to grow an existing brand? Do I have this essential oils business or this law practice or this health business or this maybe you have books or something like that? Like, do I want to expand this brand that already exists? That's a great why behind a podcast. Another one is to create something totally new in a space that you have a ton of interest in. That's what I did with podcasting business school. Like I didn't have a business. I created a business through this new brand. But I'm very passionate about that. And then the third lane that sometimes people feel almost embarrassed about, but I encourage people to go for it, is it's an artistic form of expression. It's like it's like painting. It's just
Hey,
creation. And that's okay too. You don't have to go into this with a money making mindset if that's not
yeah,
what you need. Like this your show can
fun.
serve you as a form of expression, and that's 100% okay. So you have to figure out which of those three lanes that you want to operate in, and it's okay to change lanes too. That's allowed. And I've asked the pod police, and they said it's okay.
Ah,
But so that's the first decision.
I love that. Okay.
Then once you make that decision, the show that you have to totally switch or flip the switch and go, who's the ideal listener that I can serve? Who is the person that I want to impact with this show? Because the real sweet spot, Araya, and you know this as well as me, you're a pro. You got to find that nice intersection of their pain points, the people that you want to impact. What are they struggling with? Where's the intersection with what you are super passionate and knowledgeable about? that's your content. So whether it's you dropping solo episodes, you having expert guests on to serve those pain points so you learn together, or you doing some online, coaching like I do with my podcast audits. When I bring my audience members on, I coach them up live, and that serves their pain points, and it's what I'm super interested in. So that's going to keep you going. So you define your why behind the show, and you operate in a space that totally makes sense with how you want to serve your ideal listeners and what you are interested in / an expert in. If you do that, you'll always be passionate about your show. You'll be serving the right audience. You'll grow. You'll get great feedback. You'll scoop up new listeners every place that you go. And that's important too. Like, I want people to have some success early. It really, like that first year that I did my Million Pound Mission podcast, I really didn't know what I was doing. And I got a lot of crickets, and I would release, like, I'd pour my heart out. I'd flip on my ATR 2100 mic and just pour my heart into it. And I knew I had good stuff because I had impacted my hometown with my boot camp program. I helped my hometown lose 35,000 pounds in 5 years. So like legit results, big time results. And I was like, no one is listening. But then, it was like month 15. This woman from England probably saved my podcasting career. It was the first, I'll tell you about the first email I ever got. That was early on. But the second email I ever got, month 15, woman from England said, I've been listening for 15 months and I've lost 70 pounds. You don't know me. We'll probably never meet. This has changed my life. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm in. And that kept me going. So I want to teach my audience how to get that audience feedback earlier, like episode 7, not month 7.
Right.
Because they may not make it to month 7. Most people don't. They get to episode 7 to 10 and they quit. That's where 90% of podcasts kind of lay in the podcast graveyard. So that's something I'm trying to prevent.
Well, I'm glad you are. And you also mentioned that, which is really important for them to hear as well, is everybody tends, like when I get them as my clients, I'm always telling them, consider being a podcaster, and then I send them to you to learn how to do it. And I always tell them it's not always about being an interviewer. I love interviewing because that's what my skill set. But you mentioned that they could be a coach, they could be an entertainer, they could be somebody who speaks for 15 minutes on topics of interest, and there's nobody else on the camera with them or on the microphone with them, and they don't have to do video style. It could just be audio. So there's a lot of different variables. And so do you touch on that to help them find their sweet spot? Because I know a lot of them get afraid. Oh, I don't know how to interview. There's people that shouldn't be doing interviews yet, unless they want to go to school and learn the art form of that. But they may not need to do that to lead them to their product, their service. It could be the spotlight on them as the Yoda of their industry. And you're drawing them to them, not putting the spotlight on others like I do and other podcasters do. Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite topics to touch on, because you're exactly right. A lot of people get intimidated with the interview factor. Like, oh, I don't know. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not good at interviewing other people. Like, all right, cool. Well, what do you want to accomplish here? What, from a sales perspective, what does that look like? And if they have programs, products, and services, I'm like, you may never have to do an interview. Right. And so really there's 4 types of podcast episodes that I like to utilize with my own brand and with my clients. So the interview is definitely one. Like, that's an option. You can bring on experts,
but or testimonials. They can bring on testimonials.
So here's the issue. Especially if you're a coach or a consultant, you want expert positioning to be able to sell your coaching and consulting, right? And if you only do interviews, you'll be viewed as the person that interviews experts. You will not be viewed as the expert. And that's a problem when it comes to making sales. So the other 3 types of shows that I love to utilize, that's going to help you crush it with your coaching business. That's going to help you crush it with your online course sales, your book sales. So one is a solo episode. I mean, this could be 10 minutes or less. My show, Podcast Launch Tips, is primarily solo episodes, like 7 to 8 minutes, one simple podcast launch tip delivered. All right. I do a lot of solo episodes for Podcasting Business School. Like, it's the ultimate in expert positioning, is it's just me on there talking. It's like a TED Talk. Like, you're familiar with that. It's like, all right, if you're going to do a 17-minute TED Talk, you can do a 17-minute podcast episode and just nail one topic. So that's one option. Another option is a coaching style episode. I love these, and these are my most popular episodes. I invite my listener to come on the show
To a hot seat.
for a one-on-one time.
Ooh, I love those.
Now, and just tips from my coaches out there: do not call this a free coaching session. Do not call it a free blah blah blah. You got to name it. I call them the podcast audit session. So people listen to my show, and I release these as episodes, and I sponsor that episode with the link on, hey, would you like to do a podcast audit? Here, go grab the link, go sign up. It's free. Price of admission. You're on my email list. Congratulations. And so, but with that audit comes a process. And I go, all right, we're going to audit your podcast for opportunity for monetization, download growth, and audience engagement. So it's very specific. It's not just come on and ask me anything. Like, we're going to operate in these 3 lanes. I'm going to audit your show. It's a very specific topic and process. That's important.
Okay.
But those 3 things serve the 3 biggest pain points, in my opinion, of podcasters. So I pull them on, and it's 100% expert positioning. It's just me going for 30 minutes. We look at their show. I break it down. I give my best advice just as if they were paying me. And I release these every Friday. These got so popular. I used to just mix them in.
Yeah.
They got so popular, I had to create a second episode every week. Every Friday, it's always podcast audit. I'm booked out for 8 months on these things. Like, I could do as many of these as I want. Now, the cool thing is I've been doing these for about a year and a half. 80% of these people convert and spend money with me in some way, shape, or form. And there's almost zero sales conversation because they've heard me do maybe 100 of these things on the show.
Right.
So if somebody has listened to you coach someone else even a dozen times, and then they pop on for a session, I mean, talk about like being warmed up. Like,
right. I love it.
Most of them are coming on going, hey, make sure we save some time at the end to talk about how I can work with you. Like, they're telling me that before we even start. Right. Where a lot of these people are begging people to do discovery sessions and just trying to hard sell them. I'm like, I do none of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the coaching style episode is huge. If you're in the coaching industry, you can just listen to my podcast audits. You can sign up for one if you're a podcaster, and it's great content.
And the name of your podcast is Podcasting Business School, right?
Podcasting Business School. Yep. They can check that out. And then the 4th style of an episode is what I call a community style. So it's like it's like a coaching style, but it's with more people. So I throw these Pod Pal Zoom parties. I invite 15 to 25 podcasters that listen to my show on all at once. We pick one topic, have a little roundtable discussion, and it's fun. And again,
do that.
You gotta come. I mean, that's a given. You gotta.
That'd be fun. I love your ideas. I think that makes you very special as well. When people come on with you and they join up with your podcasting business school, you're full of ideas, and they're creative, new ideas and individualized. So it's not like, here's the protocol and here's the book, follow the book. It's like you really listen to people and you get ideas, because you've given me ideas on some of our clubhouse rooms, like, Rhea, what about this and what about that? It's like, oh, and it's not something that was in a book somewhere. It's after you listen to me, you know me, you come up with great ideas, and it's so valuable. And I'm so glad you do like a hot seat, which is a great way for the listeners now to do on their own. Put their, potential customers on a hot seat, show them your stuff. And it's what I say, let people experience you. Then they will buy into you.
Yep.
But there's so much social media going on where they're just reading posts and, seeing this or cute videos or funny videos, but they need to experience what you do. And lots of different ways to do that. But I love this podcasting hot seat idea as another way to allow your potential customers to experience you in action. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, you just really talked me up there. But what it comes down to is I have outside of the box, dare I say, weird ideas, because I didn't have any formal training. So I had to figure all this out. I didn't have, John Lee Dumas mentoring me. Like, nothing wrong with John Lee Dumas, but we've all heard all of his tips, and I'm thinking about this outside of the box weird stuff that he didn't teach me, and he doesn't do because he didn't have to. It was a different time that he came up and he's blowing it up, and his brand is amazing. But what worked for him when he launched probably won't work for the average podcaster now. That's the difference.
We need weird outside the box now. After the pandemic and everything kind of upside down, people pivoting, and I think new is good. And our attention span is so small now because of things like TikTok and Reels and stuff. You got to grab people's attention quick and fast and be different. And we'll never stop pivoting. We'll never stop growing. And so I can see your podcasting business school being something you always have to tap into, because you can't, it's not something that, it's not something you just take once and like, okay, I'm done, I'm arrived. This is what I'm going to do every single week and blah, blah, blah. You have to keep it fresh. You got to keep new ideas coming. That's why I always have coaches as well. You're never going to outgrow having great coaches and mentors in your life, or you're going to lose traction on new people coming up the pipes. They're going to be doing things that are new and creative. We've got to stay relevant, got to stay fresh.
I concur, doctor.
So in the last few minutes, we got about 3 minutes left, Adam. You've been amazing. Tell us now about your podcasting school. You've given some great tips, some great insights. So this is your time to shine. How do people get a hold of you, get in touch with you? What do you have to offer the listeners and viewers if they're saying, hey, I want more of this, or I want to get on your hot seat, or I want to be a part of your roundtable, or just have a conversation with you to see how they can get into your podcasting school?
Yeah. The main hub is the website, podcastingbusiness.school. It's a .school URL. And dive in there. I keep it super simple, mainly because I built the website myself. There are 2 videos. Under the first video, it's all the free stuff. Under the second video, it's stuff you can pay me for. So that's all you'll see on there.
Love it.
So and I've only got 3 offers. But I would love for people to just check out the show. And if you need a benchmark to start, if you're a podcaster, if you're a little bit pod curious, start with episode 220 of Podcasting Business School. 220. I talk about the podcasting success timeline. Like I released episode 250 yesterday. By the time you hear this, who knows where I'll be, but episode 220 is a great starting place, because I'm going to map out the 4 phases of what I call the podcasting success timeline. I'm going to show you where you are, why you are where you are, and I'll give you a checklist of action steps to move to the next phase.
Ooh.
All right.
Well, I'm writing this down.
Yeah. So start there. Episode 220.
School is never out for the pro. We're always learning. I love it.
Yep.
That's great, Adam. Adam, you've been a joy, so insightful, so educational, and I'm so glad you were on the podcast. We're not done with you. I'm going to have you back because you're such a perfect fit for the show, because so many people these days want to and need to attract new potential clients, and podcasting is such a great way to do it. And as new things come along the pikes, I know you're going to be the first one in the innovation, sectors of ways to tweak this outside of the box, because there's nothing just average about you or the way you think, and that's why I love you so much. So
Araya, you are a true pro. I'm honored. It's really cool to be on your show. I'm a fan of what you do and how you do it. So thanks for the invite. And for everybody out there, keep supporting Araya wherever you're at. Make sure that you're leaving 5-star ratings and reviews. That's the way you put the tip in the tip jar in podcast land. Hit that like button, share it out, do whatever you got to do. If you do leave a rating review, make sure that you mention Adam as your favorite episode. That'll be
there you go.
A little bit.
I love it. I love it. Oh, that's great, Adam. Thank you so much. This has been Get Celebritized with Araya McGarry and my special guest, Adam Schaeuble with Podcasting Business School. Until next time, we'll see you there. Go out there and earn more so you can live more, so you can give back more. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, everybody.
All righty. Now on Get Celebritized, I have a very special guest coming to you right now. A dear friend of mine, a new dear friend of mine, actually, who is somebody very special, who I met when I did my famous TEDx talk that so many of you know that I did, because it was such a special journey for me. Something so different that I had never done something like that before, because it's a very special stage to take. It is not a inspirational talk. It's not something you can wing. It is a very specific type of idea and thought that you bring to the world. And I met this wonderful man, Darryll Stinson, who is hosting this here in the Atlanta area. So Darryll Stinson, I want to introduce you to now. He's a TEDx speaker with over 1 million views. He's an entrepreneur, a pastor, a speaker, and a suicide survivor. A former defensive end at Central Michigan University from 2008 to 2011, Darryll attempted to take his life in 2011 due to a severe career-ending back injury. Through a life-changing experience at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, Michigan, he got a second chance and began an arduous journey of discovering what was his purpose in his life, what his purpose really is. The founder of secondchanceathletes.com, a holistic athletic transition service for current, former, and forgotten athletes. My gosh, he just has my heart all over the place with everything that I just told you about him. So let me bring up the amazing, the wonderful Darryll Stinson. Hello.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna give you a big hug. It's so good to
Come
see
on,
you.
there, squeeze it in. There we
All
go.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, Darryll, welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Great combo.
Oh, really? And I'm so glad to see you because you're such a I look up to you so much. You've done so many great things, and you're a thriver as well. And some listeners know that I'm a cancer and domestic violence survivor, and my dad was murdered, we think, by the mafia when I was 15. I've been through so much. And then I meet you, and you're a survivor as well. And you've always impressed me. You're so kind. You're so generous. You're just a cool person. And then when I found out a little more about your story, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. So I knew you from the TEDx stage, and then I found out, wow, you had over 1 million views. That's not easy to get. So I'm going to take the listeners back first. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, because then I want to go into what you're doing to help people now because of what you went through.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And by the way, I'm just going to put this intent out there. In the next 2 years, my TEDx talk will hit 10 million views on YouTube. I had a chip on my shoulder that I was going to reach 1 million views, all organic, no PR, no press, and I did it. And I realized that was my ego that wanted to do that, and that I could have did a lot more with press, PR, and a lot of more traditional marketing practices. And so now I'm committing myself to doing that. So
this you do it for me too, because I know nothing about it.
I can teach you some things. Good. But yeah, I'm putting that out there. And anyone who wants to support that initiative and share the talk, it's helping a ton of people. I mean, you just read through the comments that you see on the YouTube video, Overcoming Rejection, and you can see the way that it's raising the consciousness of the planet, the way that it's impacting lives. For people to comment and be very vocal about the things that they're going through in their life says something, right? Yeah. Because anytime someone makes a comment, they already have gone through a certain level of internal dialogue to be able to formulate that statement. So, my story, I grew up in Jackson, Michigan. It's a small town about an hour and a half west of Detroit, and grew up in the streets. I was a smart kid, and I got made fun of for being a black kid that, quote unquote, talks and acts white.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I know. So stupid. And it created this insecurity inside of me that who I wasn't enough to be liked or loved by other people. It also caused some early insecurities about my voice, that the way that I talk, something was wrong with it. And so I carried that throughout to the point where even once I started to become a public speaker, I had a terrible fear of standing in front of people. I would forget my train of thought. I couldn't put two sentences together. I would mumble. I had terrible eye contact, terrible body language, no voice inflection. I was probably the worst. And everyone says that. And I have video footage. I have video footage. I'm going to tag you when I release it, because I keep saying I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it because people need to see the transformation that happened, because a lot of the fear and a lot of the way that I was showing up on stage was all in here. Right. And it was all in here because of what some stupid kid said to me when I was young about how I talked and how I sounded and how I dressed and how I looked. And so, long story short, I ended up kind of just pushing that down and became a Division I athlete. I was a very successful athlete, and full ride scholarship to Central Michigan University. And it was there that I was planning to go to the NFL, be rich, famous, and successful. And I had a injury, a back surgery. Should have been the end of my career. But for me, sports wasn't what I did. It was who I was. And so I signed a liability waiver after my back surgery, and I played for 2 years because of something called pain pills.
Oh my gosh.
And I developed this addiction to pain pills, and I managed to start on a Division I football team as a defensive end for 2 years. We won the MAC championship. We were ranked 23rd in the nation. We played with some great legendary athletes. Number 1 draft pick Eric Fisher, Antonio Brown, who was one of arguably top 10 receiver of all times in the NFL. And we did some great things there. But I did so at a cost to my mental health and my physical health. And going into my senior year, the coaches saw that I was taking so many opioids that it was thinning my blood to the point where every time I made contact on the field, my nose would bleed. and they kicked me off of the team. And that's when I went through this depression. That's when I had to face this reality that I didn't know who I was outside of sports, because I had changed who I was since a kid to fit in with other people.
Wow.
That's when I learned that I had a deep rooted insecurity that people didn't like me outside of my ability to play sports. On top of that, I had a girlfriend who I was dating for 4.5 years and intended to marry, who left me and got engaged to another man. And the way that I found that out was that through a friend of hers who told me it wasn't from her.
Oh my
And so
God.
that is what made me depressed. It validated the insecurity that people loved me for my gift and they didn't love me for me. And I started mixing my pills with alcohol and ultimately attempted my last attempt in a vehicle. Ended up in a psychiatric care facility where I found my faith in Christ, had a complete turnaround experience, started to prioritize my mental health, saw my first counselor, saw my first psychiatrist, wrote my first journal entry, read my first personal development book, and like Clark Kent become Superman, came out of
Oh,
the psychiatric unit a completely brand new man. Graduated with my degree in integrated public relations, worked in higher education, did marketing communications there, managed Colin Powell's press appearance at CMU, and took that
wow.
success and got into the speaking industry as a marketing consultant and kind of rode that train from there. And that's how I got to where I am today.
Oh my gosh, that was like a whole lot of amazing. I'm so glad you shared that because so
Yeah.
many people will be able to relate to, getting beaten down and childhood traumas and things like that. Let me ask you questions too. How long ago was that where you had to go to the hospital, and how long were you in that hospital before to get well? Because I think that's important for people to know now, because
Yep.
mental health now is such an important topic.
Yeah, I was in the hospital 2011. 2011. I keep saying 2012, but it's 2011. And I was legally supposed to be there for 5 days. I was only ended up being there, I want to say, for 2.5 or 3 days, which
Okay.
was a whole huge testimony because I got out just because I had to start a internship that was paid, and it worked out for me. So wasn't legally supposed to be released, but I got released.
So it's only a couple of days, but then you went on to, was it like outpatient help? Because I
Yep.
know you just didn't get well in 3 days. Tell me just a little snippet about what that journey was again, because mental health right
Yeah.
now is such an important topic, and you did so well after that. So just tap in a little bit more on what that help looked like.
Yeah, I think if I summarize that season, it was I started to lean into things that I had been avoiding my entire life. I always have this quote that I say, whatever you don't express, you suppress.
Ooh, that's good.
And when you do that, it leads to a lot of bad things. And so what I started to do is I started to express it first in the safety of counselors, then in the safety of close friends, and then ultimately in the safety of a trusted audience as a speaker.
Mm.
And so, through counseling, I just stepped into stuff that I had been suppressing my entire life. I stepped into things that happened to me as a child. I stepped in the fact that I was raised in joint custody and never felt like my parents really cared about me and that I was just a transactional element to them. I stepped
Mm.
into the fact that I had some sexual orientation identity issues growing up. I stepped into the fact that I had hurt a lot of people and sold drugs to people who are not doing well still to this day, and I had to deal with that pain and that failure. I stepped into that. I talked about it. I talked about how it made me feel. I talked about how it made me cry. I cried. I
No.
cried. And I cried some more. The fear about what my purpose was. If I had purpose, could I understand purpose? I leaned into that. I studied every major world religion. I followed my curiosity. And so these are all types of things that helped me. And the other thing that I think is important and that doesn't get talked up a lot about mental health. Typically, when people think about mental health, they think about self-care, which is all important, like journal, exercise, nature, counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, essential oils. I have essential oils right here,
I
Young
love it. I love
Living.
it.
So I do all the stuff. But there's another side to it, which is like actually being productive, actually getting after it, right? Like nothing makes you more depressed than not contributing to anybody else.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
Giving
there is
back
an
makes a big
element of
difference.
it is I had to find my gift, find my lane, and I had to step into it and I had to show up. And that brought me out of my slump. When I would see that my story could impact the lives of other people, when I could see that I could help
Yeah.
another speaker share their story, get exposure on their message, that pulled me out of my slump. And so those are the types of things that help me in terms of that mental health journey to be able to climb and get to a healthy place.
And you're so right. You say so much truth in that. When we take our eyes off of our stuff, and although we have to deal with it like you did all the right things. But when the time is right to start helping others, that's that icing on the cake. That's where you really can shine and come out and feel some joy, because now you're helping other people feel joy. And I think God made us that way, for such a special reason, that it's almost like we have to help other people because it's part of our well-being. And I always say it does more good for us when we're giving than it does for them, because it makes us feel so good to help others. And even when it is your business, if you're doing a business too, and your business is about helping other people succeed in an arena that you're great at, then that's so fulfilling. And I love that. So how'd you get from there now to, I think I'll be a motivational speaker and go on a TEDx stage? Tell us about how that happened, because that's a lot of people's goal. They're like where they are and they say, I really would love to inspire people. I'd really love to be a speaker. And so many people I've talked to since becoming a TEDx speaker myself is, how did you do that? It's on my bucket list. So what do you tell them?
I tell them work with an expert, right? we have a mutual friend in Haley. I say it's Haley or me, like pick your poison.
There you go.
Like there is a lot of people who are TEDx coaches. There's not a lot of people who understand all the nuances that go into a TEDx. And they don't have that skin in the game. And so me and Haley had a conversation, and we ripped up a bunch of people in the market, and we are protecting the integrity of the brand. So the TEDx is not about having TEDx at the bottom of your website. It's not about calling yourself a TEDx speaker. Those things are great, but it truly is about ideas worth spreading. And that's what your story was. And it was a powerful story. For me, it started as people started to notice that I fell off the map. I was in the spotlight as an athlete, and then it was like, whoa, what happened to him? Where'd he go? And I kind of was under the radar while I was working at Central Michigan University in the communications department. And I started to get some people who knew kind of the battle that I went through. They started to ask me to speak to like athletic teams, and I was like, no, wouldn't do it, just dodging it, didn't want to do it. And I think it was, one of my youth pastors convinced me to share my story first. It was in church, and there was at a talent show, and then she was like, would you share your story? And I felt like so guilty for saying no to Jesus.
You can't do that. No, you can't do that.
And so I did that, and man, I felt a release. And then another All-American athlete by the name of Brian Pruitt runs an organization called The Power of Dad, asked me to come speak to these young men who were fatherless and couldn't say no to Brian, and couldn't say no to people who grew up without a presence of a father. And so I did it there, and I did terrible. I tried to recite a recording of my speech with headphones in my ear.
Oh, no.
And I didn't realize that I speak a lot faster than I read written words. And so I got off sync with the recording, and I started to repeat sentences that I had said. It was so embarrassing. And one of my best friends was there in the back of the room, and he was bawling laughing. But I just kept saying,
it was entertaining. So
it was super entertaining. It was super entertaining. And one of the most probably top 3 embarrassing moments as a speaker.
And you're still here to talk about
still
it.
Here.
Well, good for you, because I talk to people about fail forward to success. Because if you're going to try anything and venture anything new, you're going to fail, and it's okay.
Yes.
Just don't be one of those that quit. Because so what? You had a moment like that. It'd be like the big celebrities. They do a lip syncing, and somebody catches them not singing on cue. So what? They're human. Who cares? You're talented. Keep going. And let people laugh at you. Who cares? It's fun. I'm glad I could, we've all made people laugh before, and it's a good thing, better than making them cry, unless you want them to cry at certain points of your story. So I'm so glad that you went into speaking up, because it was somebody you couldn't say no to. And that's always cool. So you were basically, I can hear and see and feel the fiber of your being, Darryll, and it's to help others. When somebody asks you something, would you help? You're going to say yes. Whether you think you have confidence or can do the job or not, you can't say no, because you want to help. And so
Yeah.
that's a really important gift that God's given you. So
Yeah.
with that, you can do all things because, okay, I just want to help you. How bad could it go? Because when you're helping others, you're going to help no matter what happens. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Mhm.
The only thing that has to be perfect is those TEDx stages have to be. That's a different animal. But besides that, get out there. I always tell people, do not do it lightly. If you want to do it, it is a commitment. You get that coach out there. I've been giving
Yep.
everybody Haley's phone number. I said, don't even think about winging that because I'm the professional at winging it. Everybody knows I'm unscripted. I wing things. I can get on camera like this, love it. But for that, I took it seriously and I did it the right way. And I hope everybody does because it's not something you mess around with, but it can be the greatest message you ever give to the world.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And you did a phenomenal job.
Thank
By the
you.
way.
Thank you. A
Yeah.
lot of work, but worth every bit of it.
Yeah.
And really stretches you. And I think it's really important as we live, as I turned 60 this year, instead of thinking like, oh, I'm too old for this, or I've, gotten to my stride. It's like, no, doing things new, jumping off those cliffs, getting
Yes.
out, jumping out of the airplane with a parachute, doing things like, I think it was Bush Sr. jumped out of a plane in a parachute at 89 years old. Betty White, one of my idols, was getting kissed by a grizzly bear at 99. That's me. I always want to be
Yes.
thinking, what else can I do? And I hope I inspire other people. Say, who cares how old you are? You got breath in your lungs. Go do something you've never done before and show the world, show yourself that you can. I
Yes.
really didn't think I could. I didn't think I could memorize that after going through chemo, which killed my memory, and going through menopause, which I thought killed my memory. And I'm like having to memorize, and I was really nervous. And I got up on that stage. I don't know if I ever told you. I walked on that red dot, and I just drew a blank. And I just remembered the first line.
Wow.
And I said the first line, and then because I had done all my diligence and done all my prayers, believe it, we do all what we can do, and then God does the rest.
Wow.
And it was that moment I remembered the first line, and then it started showing up in my brain because you all don't have teleprompters for TEDx.
Right.
The teleprompter started in my psyche and my brain, and I saw the pages that I've been memorizing. It was like a teleprompter, and I remembered every word. And it was and I had that peace that passes all understanding. And God just held me up because I did all that I could do. And then he lifted me up and did the rest. And it was so amazing. And so, I do a lot of stuff in my day and I don't ever think twice about it. But that was one moment that I was like, wow, that was a big deal. And I just want to give especially women, we think after 40, we're too old to do anything new. And we're not. We're definitely not.
That's powerful. Come on, keep going. You're inspiring me. You're inspiring me. This is what I'm talking about. So
That's why
beautiful.
it's so special. Just anything that you're doing. So talk to us a little bit about this because I know it's a hot topic. We've got about another 8 or 9 minutes left. Tell us anything you want us to know about success and achieving their dreams and goals, whether it's how to get on a TEDx stage or how to become the best they can be, because you're a coach, you're amazing. So talk to us about something that's on your mind that maybe you have coming up that you're doing to help people because they need all the help we can get right now, include myself after this pandemic and these pivots and this mental health crisis that everybody's feeling it. Nobody got out of the pandemic without having some scars. There's just nobody that didn't get a scar from this, some more than others. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is just, remember that a bad day doesn't mean that you had a bad life. And sometimes we think that. We think, man, I had a bad day or a series of bad days, and we think that means we have a bad life, and we forget all that we've overcome, all that we persevered through. And I think that if there's anything people can do during these times is just remind themselves of who they are. I think the pandemic had a way of making people forget who they are. I know speakers who just completely quit because they lost and I did too at the beginning. I lost 86% of my income.
Absolutely, me too.
And I pivoted well and fast, and which was a blessing. But for others, they didn't, and they started to question the validity of their message, the worth of their story, and they forgot who they were. Leaders who hit crisis and they had to lay off employees, they forgot who they were.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to remind ourselves who we are, that we are overcomers, that we are more than capable, that we have what it takes, that we are leaders worth following. And the more that we remind ourselves of that story, the more it becomes true.
I love that. I love that. And what's one way that you help people now, Darryl? I put up your website, darrylstinson.com.
Yeah.
And what will people find there? Like, how can you help them? They're struggling and they're not pivoting well. They need to take their life up a notch. What can you do for them?
Yeah. So anyone who just needs courage or inspiration, just follow me on my socials. I often do inspirational videos. Sometimes I post clips of me speaking. The primary way I'm serving people now is helping leaders turn their messages into movements.
Ooh,
Okay.
say that again. That's good.
Helping leaders turn their messages into movements.
What do you mean by that? What's a movement
A
in your eyes?
movement is everyone on the planet who is your former self,
Ooh.
looking for guidance, wanting to know how in the world they overcome this, how in the world they figure out how to be themselves, even though they're a woman, how in the world they figure out how to navigate a divorce, how in the world they figure out, in my instance, how to overcome mental health challenges as a Black man who has a voice to share and a story to share, but feels so insecure around that. Everyone is powerfully positioned to help the former version of themselves. But the
Gosh, I love
problem,
that. That's such a great quote.
yeah,
Repeat that
I
again.
will.
That is so good.
Everyone that's listening is most powerfully positioned to help the former version of themselves.
Love that.
Okay. And what happens is we discount the power of our own story.
Hmm.
Okay. And we think that it's just inspirational, and we don't recognize that there is a direct correlation between your story that you're called to share and the movement you're called to lead.
Oh, this is so good, Darryl.
Okay.
The story to share, but the movement to lead. I'm
Mhm.
going to be calling you in the morning. I'm
Come on.
just saying.
Come
Gosh.
on. You've got a movement, and it's
Wow.
connecting those dots. It's connecting the story to the movement, right? And typically with people, even if they're already speakers, then I work with them.
Right.
That's one of the most challenging things to work through is we've got used to doing keynotes, we got used to doing workshops, we got used to doing breakout sessions, all good, do it all. But
Right.
we miss the point that the point of me stepping up and sharing my story is to create a movement, right?
What's one way you do that? When you're saying that, how do you shift our mindsets? Okay. What do you mean? A movement versus all those things you just mentioned that we're already doing.
Okay, shift from being transactional to being relational. Transactional is I want everybody to buy my program so they can buy a course and I don't have to have a relationship with them. Being relational means that I actually care about the transformation that's happening as a result of me speaking. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll give you even more specific. Okay,
Please.
so when I meet and I have follow up conversations with event planners, yes, do I want repeat business? Of course. But what I'm looking for, I'm measuring the impact that I made as a speaker. I'm asking them, what are people saying about what I spoke? Have you heard any stories of people who are implementing things that I said? Because what I want to see is the movement creating? Okay. And what happens is if I hear yes and I hear stories, you know what I say? I don't say, okay, cool. How do I get more business? I say, okay, cool. What else do they need? How else can I support them? How can they stay connected to me in this journey? How can they take what started there and turn it into a movement, like a dance party? How can we get more people to the dance party?
Yes.
Right? Like a
Crap. Yeah.
flash mob. Like,
The
how do we
flash
get
mob. That's
more
what I think
people
of.
to join in on the flash mob? That's what creating a movement is. And what we want, we got because of social media and because of virality, we got a ton of influencers who want fame more than they want transformation, right? Who care more about their image more than they care about their impact. And that's
Ooh.
fine. I slipped into that in periods of my life too because of insecurity. But what I'm calling people into is digging into the depths of their story so they can find their most powerful story and step into the leadership of their movement. Okay.
Is that hard to do? You've got me now. You've got me fired up. But the
Yeah.
two of us, I'll tell you what, this is the impact, and you just saying so many things. I'm gonna go back and listen to this one again and write these down because these quotes that you're saying now are definitely requotable because they're so important. So, what's one thing that the listeners and the viewers can be thinking of now to make that shift?
Mhm. I would tell them focus on being relational
Okay.
and pay attention to the results that you're making in the world. Okay. So for you, I'll give you a very practical example for you. So you did a TEDx talk, right? On your YouTube video, there are people who are commenting on your TEDx talk. To create a movement out of that, the first question you need to ask yourself is, why are they commenting?
Okay.
Okay. Because if all we do is see, oh, they commented, thank you so much for engaging, we miss all of the internal fortitude that they had to go through to comment. Remember, when people comment, it is only what they're portraying to you. Right? Think about when you comment, you have a whole thought process that goes through your head, and then you go, let me say what is socially, publicly acceptable.
Okay. So you go deeper.
So go deeper and ask questions. What really resonated with you about my talk? What story was it? I don't care if it's cousin or grandma. I would ask, because what I'm looking for is the breadcrumbs of my movement. And then I start to see a theme. Wow, this is really resonating with people, right? For me, I was shocked. I thought it was going to be, certain other stories. What it ended up being for people was this concept around me being the Black kid that quote unquote talks and act white. It caused a riot in the comments. And I started to see, whoa, there's a whole movement of people who feel the same way. One of those people was Mark Hayes.
Mark, yay!
Remember Mark?
Mark's my friend. Of course I know Mark.
Mark came up to me and he was like, "You're the TEDx dude." He said, "I felt that way too. I was called the Black kid that talked and act white too."
Oh, that's
right.
funny.
And I could have just said, "Oh, thank you so much." But what I realized is Mark's connected to my movement.
And then what did you do next?
I met and had lunch with him and his wife.
And then what happened?
And then we struck up a conversation. We built a relationship. I gave him some advice on his TEDx talk, and we started talking about how he can become an extension of the same message, how he can step more powerfully into the leadership of his movement. And now, not only did we connect through my movement, now we're co-leaders of movements.
I love that.
And now Mark is reaching people, impacting people who Darryll Stinson would have never been able to meet. And Araya is doing the same thing.
But we need to do lunch. Wait a minute. I missed the lunch dates.
We do. Let's do it.
Know? Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do. I am ready for these lunch dates. My gosh. Oh, God. Darryll, this is wonderful. Nothing else. I got so much out of this talk. You really just empowered me in such a deeper level. And I just think you've just got such a God-given talent to take people up a notch, to take them from that inspiration to impact to movement. We're not done with you either. I want to have you back. I want to talk more about this. And I definitely want to do lunch with you and talk to you more about how we can work together. We live right in the same area, the same town. We need to make even a bigger impact on the world, where I can be reaching the women and the mompreneurs and other people that maybe you wouldn't reach, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
So let's do this, because you and I are such collaborators. We so want to help more people before we take our last breath. It's not about who reaches more. It's about how many we can reach together. And that's what I love about you. Yay.
Yes.
Darryll, I love you. You're amazing.
I love you too.
I'm putting is your TEDx up on your website?
Probably not anymore, but just search my name in TEDx. It'll pop right up. Yeah.
It will. So Darryll Stinson, Darryll Stinson, for those listening, Stinson. Look them up, TEDx. While you're there, look up Araya McGarry, TEDx. You'll see both of us. You'll see Mark Hayes there, TEDx. We got some great people up there on TEDx. And if you want to make an impact in this world, please do not hesitate to get in touch with Darryll Stinson. You're probably following me on social media. Follow Darryll. Together, we will all achieve more. So thank you for watching Get Celebritized. Share with your friends. Give us a star rating. Follow Darryll. And Darryll, thank you so much for being on Get Celebritized and helping everybody not just earn more, to live more, to give back more, but to make a bigger impact and to create their movements. Thank you.
Love it.
Love you.